Fran Bow is a very sad story of the struggle between conscious and subconscious thoughts. There are 5 chapters to the game, sort of 7, and I'm going to go through it chapter by chapter and then give my theories at the end of the game, and some real deep dive theories, not just spoil. The main character of the game is Fran Bow, Fran Dagenhart Bow. She is I looked it up and it said 9. I thought I remembered her being 12, but little kid dealing with all of these mental health struggles and seeing all of this very unpleasant stuff in the world. The intro to the game shows Fran's life through her point of view. It shows things like, it feels like heaven, look at my family, they look so happy, and you're introduced to 2 very main characters. Your Aunt Grace, who is your mother's sister, and your pet cat, Mr. Midnight. Everything's sort of been normal and made sense up until now, and the music's been happy, Fran's been happy, but now it's storming outside, and she sees a monster out her window, which is the first abnormal thing that's going on. So she runs down the hallway to tell her parents about it. When you get to your parents' room, you find that they've already been gotten to by the monster. And this image of Fran crying tears is sort of the logo of the game and a big symbol of the game, so remember it. After you see this, you just take Mr. Midnight and run. You run out the house as far as you can until Fran passes out. The intro ends with you getting picked up by strangers in hoods in the woods, and then you wake up in the Oswald Asylum, getting questioned by your doctor, Dr. Deern. Your doctor tells you that Mr. Midnight is missing and that your Aunt Grace came by to give you a present. Your Aunt Grace from the beginning intro knows that you're here and came to give you your mom's old purse, which is what you use for the actual gameplay when you're picking up stuff and combining them, using them. Before you go back to your room, your doctor tells you that he wants you to try a new medicine. It's called Duotine, but it operates like silly stamps or mushrooms, or it separates the conscious thoughts and the subconscious thoughts, and it shows Fran what she calls the ultra reality, or the nightmare world, and I'll explain more of what that is later. But her doctor sees her pass out and freak out and says never let her take that again. After you pass out, you have a dream of Mr. Midnight telling you to take the medicine, I miss you, I love you, I'll be in the forest waiting for you, and the demon is taunting you again. If you go back to Fran's point of view, she does not like the asylum. She thinks Mr. Midnight is talking to her and telling her she's in the forest, so her plan is to break out of the asylum, find Mr. Midnight using the medicine that she was told not to use, get Aunt Grace, or get back in contact with Aunt Grace because she trusts her, and take out the demon that took out her parents. The first 2 people that you meet are Phil and the nurse. Phil is your roommate, and he is there because he's paranoid. He also sees things, though, so you talk to him, he's your friend, and later on he points to the wall and says he won't let you leave, and the same monster that you're afraid of shows up. The nurse tells you that you can't have your medicine, the cat sounds like a jerk if he told you to leave, and she's very standoffish, but not too standoffish at first. You end up getting your medicine back and getting the nurse's keys so you can explore the asylum. After Fran gets the medicine back, you can see how she starts to perceive the world through her subconscious mind instead of just her conscious mind, where without the pills, she talks to Phil, Phil sees the demon, Phil sees the monster, and Phil's paranoid. When she takes the pills, Phil has his own monster. Everyone in the asylum has their own little monsters that have their own story that we'll get into as well, but that are telling them all the things that are really wrong in their lives. And Fran doesn't see this without the pills, but when she takes them, she sees the things she doesn't want to see, and they're being brought to the forefront, but because of how they are, she doesn't know if they are real or fake. The next patient that you meet is Adelina. She's a 7-year-old victim of SA who barely survived, and because of the event, now she has severe auditory and visual hallucinations. After you meet Adelina, you go back into the hallway where you're confronted by the nurse. She's very upset that you're in the hallway, but you're able to convince her that she left the door open. Once the nurse leaves, you meet the security guard, and it's very clear immediately that the security guard is not only creeping on the patients, but taking advantage of them in lots of ways. After you meet the security guard, you meet this patient. I don't think it ever says her name, but it's very clear that she's worried of telling the doctors the truth because she hears that the doctor will cut your brain out and eat it. The next patient you meet is Robert. Robert has a big scar down the side of his head and thinks that he's seeing things in the TV. He puts pieces of paper, blank paper, to the TV and tells Fran that the paper isn't working. It's not working right, and Fran just sort of plays along with him to try and get what she wants, which is his help out of the asylum. The last of the main patients that you meet is the King, and he calls himself that, and he has a cane, which is his sword, and Fran needs his sword, and he can't give Fran his sword, but when you take the medicine, when you go into the ultra reality, his demon is clearly telling Fran that a priest essayed him and beat him, and that's why he has the cane. That's why he's a bit nutty in the head, and he's sort of the last of the main patients you interact with. After you meet all of the patients, you use what they have to knock the security guard unconscious and take his keys to Dr. Deern's office. When you're in Dr. Deern's office, you meet Bill again, and he's clearly having an episode, but talking to you about your delusions. He closes the door, the monster comes and taunts you again, and you have to go through the vents to escape. After you go through the vents, you go to the lower levels of the asylum, and this is where all of the really horrible stuff happens. There are lobotomy patients, twins sewn together, a lot of experiments on twins, and this is where the real horror of the asylum is going on. This is where all the underground old medicine is happening, and Fran has just walked in on this. The name It Word is on one of the windows in the lower levels of the asylum, and he's one of the main characters of the game. We've seen him kind of throughout the game now, only as a shadow, and we haven't talked to him yet, but this is the first time we're seeing his name, is when we take the medicine and it's written on one of the windows in the lower levels of the asylum. Fran goes to leave the basement. She goes up the stairs and is visited by the monster one more time. When the monster leaves, she goes through the door and is at the front gate of the asylum. There's one nurse between her and the front door. When you get out the front door, you're met by the creepy security guard. He cusses you out before you have an episode. You see the monster again, and the monster takes out the security guard before taunting you. But at this point, now Fran is free from the asylum. Chapter 1 ends with her having another dream of Mr. Midnight telling her where to go to come and find her, and she goes into the woods looking for him, starting Chapter 2.